And welcome back to the Financially Simple Experience. So friends, let's take a journey. Let's go way back to when we first became business owners. Maybe you started your business from scratch like I did. Maybe, just maybe, you purchased your business from a seller out there. Undoubtedly, though, you became a business owner. And at that point, life changed. There was a time in the infancy of our business when we would work with anybody and everybody. As the old saying goes, we would work with anyone who would fog a mirror. Now, as our business began to mature, and as we made more money, as we perhaps gained greater confidence in our product or our service, we realized that there's some fallacy to that concept that perhaps, just perhaps, we should not work with anybody and everybody. In fact, clients and a value of a client matters. Not all clients are created equal. We realize this at some point. And before you know it, we start looking and saying, how can I get better clients? How can I gain better customers? Way back in episode 399 that aired in February of 2022, I discussed how to create the perfect buyer persona. How do we determine who our customers are? But out of this episode, I received a question. It was, Justin, how can I determine my ideal client from reading the business data, from reading the tea leaves from within the business or the metrics of the business? Now, when I heard that question come about, I was like, man, that'd be a great podcast episode. But then my mind asked a rhetorical question, and it was this: are the customers that I'm acquiring today going to contribute more revenue than they're costing me, or are they going to contribute more revenue than the previous customers that I acquired? We don't want to constantly bring in customers or clients who are falling into the bottom 20% of our value in terms of clientele. We want to try to bring in higher quality customers and clients consistently over and over and over again. So you may ask yourself, well, Justin, why do metrics even matter? If I'm trying to determine an ideal client, why does it matter? There's a lot that can be ascertained from reading the tea leaves, from reading the data that your business generates. We've talked ad nauseum about KPIs and various metrics within our business. And when you look at this data, you can determine what your sales strategy would be, what your marketing plan should be, and even can help determine the long-term financial decisions of your company. But before you know who your ideal clients are, you must evaluate the key metrics of your business. So today I want to go over 3 specific key metrics that you can look at in your business to help you determine your most profitable client, to help you determine if the clients that you're bringing in today are going to leave you with greater profits or perhaps reduced profits. Now, before we can dive into these 3 specific metrics, there is some pre-work that you have to do. I'm going to make the assumption that you've done these particular moves. Now, one of the first things you need to do is you need to segment your customer base using the RFM model. And that stands for recency, frequency, and monetary. Recency, frequency, and monetary. So it's called the RFM model. Now, what is the RFM model? Perhaps you've never heard of this. This is a marketing strategy that's often used. It's taught in business school, often in 101. According to Investopedia, recency, frequency, and monetary value, RFM, is a marketing analysis that segments a company's customer base by their purchasing patterns or habits. Notice what I said there. Their purchasing patterns or habits. Eventually, it'll help you identify the repeatable behaviors of your clients to pinpoint the average client life cycle. That's what we're after here, is the average client life cycle. Now, but how does it work? Recency explains how recently a customer made a purchase. When was the last time the customer bought something from you? Now, frequency is going to detail how often the client purchases a good or a service from you. So we look at recency as how long ago did it happen? Frequency is how often do they make the purchase? So frequency shows you how often they buy from you. Maybe it's 20 times a year, 10 times a year, 1 time a year. And then monetary exhibits the amount of money they spend each time they make a purchase. Let's give an example for that, because that can be often complicated. I have a vehicle. I have a Ford F-150 that I get an oil change in. Sometimes I change it myself. Sometimes I take it to the shop if there's like some recalls or things of that nature. Undoubtedly, I have to change the oil 3 times a year. So my frequency is 3x. Each time I change the oil, it's going to cost me $40 to $60. That is my monetary cost. Recency is I just had the oil changed in my truck on December the 20th. That was the most frequent time. That was how recent it was. So if I look at a Ford truck, my recent was December the 20th of 2022. Frequency is 2 to 3 times a year, and cost, or the monetary wise, is $40 to $60. If you can determine these, then you can determine your average lifetime of your client, or the first metric, which is the customer lifetime value. We're going to use CLV as an acronym through this particular podcast, but it stands for the customer lifetime value. In other words, how long is the customer going to be with you, and how much are they going to generate for your business? So let's dissect this particular metric, because it is paramount in understanding if your particular customers are good or not, if they're the right clientele that you need, if they're going to yield the results that you are expecting. So in order to calculate your customer lifetime value, we need to understand how much profit per unit, or what's the profit per service. Profit is pretty simple to determine. For example, if we go to a P&L, profit and loss statement, we would look at total revenue, and then we would see our cost of goods, which would give us our gross profit. Our gross profit then subtract total expenses, which gives us our net profit. Pretty simple. If we're trying to figure out a profit margin, we would divide net profit by gross revenue. That would give us our profit margin. And so then to determine the long-term customer value, the client lifetime value, the CLV, what we simply need to look at is frequency times lifetime times gross profit is going to give us our customer lifetime value. So let's put this to work. For the sake of this example, let's say the average lifetime of a client is 2 years. And during this life cycle, they're going to purchase 4 different times from you for 4 different widgets. And let's say that each time that you sold something to them, it would yield you $200 in profit. Okay, this is pretty simple to calculate. We're going to take 2 times 4. Okay, $200 times 4 times a year times 2 years is going to give us a customer lifetime value of roughly $1,600. Now let's flip it around a little bit. Let's say on the other hand, you've got a separate revenue offering that yields $100 in profit, but a client who purchases the offer 12 times during a 2-year period. So now we're going to take, over 1 year, they purchased 12. So 12 times 100 is $1,200. Times 2 is $2,400. The reason why I show those in one hand versus the other is because many times business owners will look at the highest profit margin, but forget the frequency of the purchase. Or they'll look at the highest profit margin, but forget the tenure or the duration of the purchase. So even though my first example had a profit margin of $200, they were only buying it 4 times a year over 2 years, which gave us $1,600. Whereas the second example I had $100 in profit margin in it, but they purchased it 12 times during that year, which over a 2-year period gave us $2,400. So even though the first example I had a higher margin in it, it didn't generate as high of a customer lifetime value calculation as example number 2 did. So if we understand that customer lifetime value is whenever I acquire this customer, what can I reasonably expect in profit from this customer? If we can anticipate that number, then we have a very good metric to make decisions from. You say, Justin, you've oversimplified it. Yeah, I know. I'm actually doing this right now for our entire business model. I'm looking at all the different clients within the company, looking at all the different offers that are in the company, and determining what is the averages based on bands or based on tiers per clientele, per customer within our particular company. And so whenever you dissect your company, you may have 4 or 5 or 6 different offers. And you may discover that offer B is much more profitable, even though it's not as sexy, it's not as high priced as offer C. So when you're trying to determine customer lifetime value, what you can actually do is ascertain the customer lifetime value per offer that you have. So let's bring it to another example. I was working with a marketing firm out of Australia not too long ago. This is maybe 24, 36 months ago. And they were offering website creations. They were doing social media, campaign management. They were doing podcast creation. And whenever we looked at the time involved with their team versus the revenue, so we said, how much they charge their customers for each of those items, how much time, what's our expenses, and how much profit do we make per widget? The customer thought the websites were the greatest revenue producers. Why? Because they would charge $20,000 to $40,000 a website. However, it was a $20,000 to $40,000 1X. Whereas when we got to social media management and it was price point at $5,000 to $2,000 a month, it ended up being that social media management, whenever they gained a new client, that customer lifetime value was greater than as they thought, the sexy website makeover. And it gave them the knowledge to say, you know what, even though we'll continue to do website makeovers, we really need to pour our marketing dollars into social media management because it gives us a higher customer lifetime value, or CLV. There's your first metric. This is why segmentation, as I mentioned, was so valuable, segmenting your clients before you ever jump in these metrics. Metric number 2 is customer acquisition cost. Often you'll see this abbreviated CAC or CAQ, depending on which school of thought there is there. I use CAC. Customer acquisition cost is an approximate calculation of the total cost to acquire a new customer. How much is it going to cost your company to bring on a new customer? Now, why does that matter? The reason why that matters is it gives you a budgetary mentality. It allows you to say, hey, if I'm going to spend X number of dollars, then I should expect Y results. If I'm going to spend $100,000 in marketing and my customer acquisition cost is $1,000 per customer, then I should get 100 new clients. So for $100,000, I should get 100 new clients. So customer acquisition cost matters. Now, how do you calculate it? This is a relatively simple calculation. You're going to look at the dollars you spend in sales, the dollars you spend in marketing, divide that by the total number of clients. Okay. So let's say that you added on, for example, I'm going to give you a few examples for this. Let's say you added on 1,000 new clients this past year and you spent $100,000 in sales and marketing. That means your customer acquisition cost is $100,000 for sales and marketing divided by 1,000 new clients is $100. So for each customer that you acquire, it costs you $100. That is important to know, but why? Because whenever you each stack the customer lifetime value on the customer acquisition cost, you get to our third metric. And the third metric is where the magic is made, friends. This is where we as business owners can make very prudent business decisions. Again, we're trying to get away from every client who fogs a mirror, trying to get away from the old farmer who would lick their finger and throw it up in the air, try to figure out which way the wind's blowing. We want to make decisions out of true data. We want to make decisions that we can, we want to make decisions that we can rationally expect the results. So now our third metric is customer lifetime value divided by customer acquisition cost. This is a metric that if you push the first two together and you do this, it is powerful. So how do you calculate it? Simple. Customer lifetime value divided by customer acquisition cost. It's that easy. Let's go back to our examples. If you remember from my very first example, you had a client A who had a customer lifetime value of $1,600. So let's revisit the example I gave. I gave an example and said we had a customer who had a average lifetime duration of 2 years. And during that 2 years time, they would purchase 4 units each year. And each unit gave us $200 in margin. So that means 200 times 4 is 800 times 2 is 1,600. So $200 in margin or profit times 4 purchases per year is 800 times 2 years is $1,600. On the other hand, we had a customer who made $100 in profit per purchase, and they purchased 12 times a year, and they were with us for 2 years. So in that example, we had 100 times 12 purchases per year for 2 years is $2,400. So now that you've refreshed your memory on that, Those two clients had, offer A had a customer lifetime value of $1,600 and offer B had a customer lifetime value of $2,400. Now let's assume that customer A had a customer acquisition cost of $100 and offer B cost $200. What we're trying to do is we're trying to work the magic here. So if we take, in this case, offer A has a lifetime value of 16, while offer B has a lifetime value of 12. So offer A, if you remember, was $1,600, and it cost to build this, customer acquisition cost was $100. So $1,600 divided by 100 is 16, whereas customer B had $2,400, even though it sounded more profitable, it cost us to gain them $200. So therefore, we only had a offer of 12. Therefore, when we're looking at the customer lifetime value divided by customer acquisition cost, friends, we realize if we take that metric, we can determine which client we should pour our dollars toward. Now, that is heavy. I realize trying to listen to this on a podcast is heavy. Me trying to explain it to customers or clients, business owners, is hard. It's difficult. We're going to have all this listed out in the blog. We'll have a link in the show notes. You can go to the blog and read this for yourself. But, one of the things I'm trying to do in 2023 as we release recordings is to give you more meat. As business owners, you're seasoned. You know how to run a business, and you're trying to get that competitive advantage. Friends, learning customer lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, and then dividing customer lifetime value by the customer acquisition cost gives you power. Because now if you're deploying $100,000 or $2 million into your marketing within your company, you know where to place those dollars toward. If we were looking at our example A versus example B, when we looked at this earlier, we said, you know what? It makes a lot of sense for us to maybe use that the customer who's buying 12 times a year, that's $2,400. That makes a lot of sense to us. But we forgot to conclude what was our cost to gain that customer. And so when we add all this together, it helps us make powerful decisions. Powerful decisions. See, it's going to allow you to increase bandwidth and maximize profitability. So many times clients say, Justin, I'm spending more money, but I'm not seeing more bottom line margin. I'm not seeing more NOI, net operating income. Why? Well, you've never done the metrics. You're not following the basic things that you have to do in order to determine where to deploy your dollars within your business. So by learning these three calculations, you can increase your bandwidth. You know now how to create efficiency and profitability within your company. It's going to allow you to fine-tune your sales and marketing. If I have a pet peeve, and I have many when it comes to working with business owners, if I have a pet peeve, it is the shiny object syndrome with relation to marketing. And it candidly ticks me off. And I'll tell you why. Because I've heard it all for years. Marketing doesn't work. So-and-so spent this money and they put a sign up on the side of the road on the billboard and they got X number of new clients off of it and I didn't. I've been working with a number of clients for some time trying to get them to a certain point. And I've been trying to run these three calculations, show them the importance of it, try to illustrate it. And it's sometimes just like writer's block. They can't see it. And they change companies. They change marketing companies. Guess what the new marketing firm asked them? Hey, what's your customer lifetime value? What's your customer acquisition cost? They couldn't answer it. See, if you know these things, it allows you to fine-tune your marketing. It allows you to know where to deploy your soldiers, whether it be that billboard or that mailer or that social media campaign or that SEO campaign that you might use. Friends, this is tough. This is tough work. But if you deploy a mindset in 2023 of, I'm going to dive deeper and I'm going to have every dollar give me ROI, then and only then will you reach your goals. I was reading a novel written by Tom Clancy. He's a military writer. He's written a lot of stories that have been placed into Broadway hits, into movies, various shows. And I had this thought for my own self as I'm looking into 2023, the year ahead of us. I'm thinking, if I could deploy every dollar or every asset within our company, every strategy, every technique, every person militarily to one objective, how much more powerful could we be? Instead of trying to shift them throughout, everybody running their own thing, so to speak, if I could get everything centralized with quantifiable results, what would the year end as? So the question came through the social media channels of, hey, Justin, I get the point of how to build a buyer profile, but how in the world can I determine my true customer? Friends, start with client segmentation. You got to have that done first. Follow the RFM model. Remember, recency, frequency, monetary value model. And then calculate your customer lifetime value, calculate your customer acquisition cost, and then divide the two. This metric's powerful. Friends, I realize as complicated it is. This is why so many of us need business coaches. My own business has coaches involved in it. They help us challenge us. If you need somebody in your corner to challenge you this year, hey, reach out to us. We have a group of business advisors who can help you. Maybe you're looking at this year saying, man, I don't even know financially if I can make this work. I realize that 90% of my income is tied up in my business, and I need somebody to show me a pathway to gain financial independence. We have an army. We have an army. I'm using my word from earlier. We have an army of financial advisors. We have financial advisors and certified financial planners who are equipped to help run financial plans for you and help you. Reach out to us. We can help. Till next time, friends, y'all go out and make it a great day.